Okay, so last time we were looking at our good dead friend Descartes in First Meditations, and as you recall, Descartes was trying to find a foundation of absolute certainty for the sciences and philosophy, and he's going to do this by tearing down the old structure, which is all rickety and dilapidated, and was built on an unfirm foundation, namely the senses. And his method was essentially to knock out the bad foundations and rebuild. And he ran through the three arguments. The sense argument, sense of deceive, can't trust him, but maybe you can trust him in general. Then he brings up the dream argument, if you can't trust him even in general. And he says maybe you can trust math. And then he brings up the demon, and then everything seems to be in free fall into skepticism. Now his project, again, is not to be skeptical, because if his goal was just simply to be skeptical, he'd have meditation one say, one and done. No, we know nothing. But again, his method is that method of doubt. What he's trying to do, to use an analogy, it'd be like trying to find indestructible metal. And what you try to do is you just keep trying to destroy stuff. You find something you can't destroy, maybe it's the indestructible metal. And so he's trying to find a belief that cannot be doubted, to find certainty. So what gives him, in that free fall, what gives him the foundation? Well, he can doubt his senses, this could all be a dream, a demon could be deceiving him, but to use the pit or well metaphor, he finally hits bottom. And the bottom is his salvation. Is, I think I am. And he claims that whenever he thinks that, or says it, he may not be able to say it because he might not have any mouth. Whenever he thinks, I think I am, that is not only true, but necessarily true. So to his satisfaction, he has found a certain and absolute truth. So is he right about that? If you think, I think I am, can he be wrong? How could you be wrong? How could you think and be wrong about what you're thinking?
I guess it would be based on perspective. Like, you personally wouldn't feel like you're wrong, but if other people were seeing you, then you could be wrong. Because if you say, I think I'm a pig, therefore I'm a pig, but I'm not really be a pig, you could be a human, so that would be wrong.
Well, true. Someone could be wrong about being a pig.
Yeah.
But could a person be wrong about thinking? If somebody says, I think I am, could be wrong about that. Yeah, Descartes thinks he's found something you can't be wrong about. Now, some people have claimed you could be wrong, because it may be that a person, one thing that people have raised is, this could be an inference. I think, therefore I am. And the evil demon, again, can break inferences. Another thing people have brought up, actually connected to your point, is a person may think that they are, but they might not really be. They might be something thought by something else. They might not be a thing at all, but might be being thought by another being. It's kind of weird. Probably too weird. That's like animated weird. We shouldn't go there. So, to his satisfaction, he has found the thing that he cannot doubt. The claim, I think I am. Now, is that enough, though? Or just, if you just say, I think I am, is that satisfying? Do you know all you need to know now? And say, one and done. No, because his goal was not just to be finding one certain thing, but he wanted to like Archimedes, he wants to find the one point by which he can rebuild everything. So what he's going to do is go from what he thinks is the one certain thing and try to build everything back up. So what he's trying to do, and this ties in your point about a person thinking they're a pig, for example, or not a pig, he has to figure out what this is, because he's got a self, but what is that? So what he considers is this. First he considers is that maybe when he says or thinks, I think I am, maybe he is a rational animal. Why do you say that? Well, our good dead friend Aristotle defined man, or human, to be non-sexist, as the rational animal. That we're animals, but we're rational. It's our special deal. But he thinks that that won't do. Why? Well, for the point you raised. A person, if they think they're a rational animal, is that certain that they're an animal? No, a person may think they're a pig, but they could be wrong about being a pig. A person may think they're an animal, could be wrong about that. So, that is it. Second, he considers this. Maybe he's a body, a physical object. Essentially, he's considering philosophical materialism, that he is a body that occupies space, that can be perceived by the senses, three-dimensional thinking. But does he know that? Does he know that he is a body, even that he has a body? Well, at this point, no, it could all be a dream, or it could be the demon messing with him. So, body is out. So, the only thing he can be sure about is this, that the only thing that he can be certain about is that he thinks. And the only thing that's inseparable from him is the attribute of thought. So he makes a bit of a jump here. He's he can't know if he's a body, can't know if he's a rational animal, but he accepts that he is a thing that thinks. He's a thinking thing, or a thinky thing, or a thinky, well, anyways, that only went so far, broke down pretty quick. So he's a thinking thing. But then the question is, what kind of thinking thing is he thinking of? But so far he's rejected this. He's not a body, because he doesn't know if he is a body. And he rejects some of the, you may wonder, like, why is he talking about things like a subtle air distributed through the body, or wind, a fire, a vapor? Well, why would he bring up such seemingly odd things? Yeah, they're elements. And these are things that, if you go back into the history of philosophy, these are things people put forth as maybe that's what the person is. That a person is, that life is the breath of air, or a vapor, or something. And so he concludes that all he knows for sure is that, well, he knows, at this point he seems to know two things. He thinks, and he's a thinky thing, whatever that might be. So how does he know about this? Well, what he's trying to do is figure out by what means does he know these things. And he considers, well, maybe it's by his imagination, but can you know things through your imagination? Well, I'll put it as a question. Suppose somebody said, you ask somebody, well, did you bring enough money to pay for this? And they say, sure. And you say, well, how do you know? It says, well, I imagined I had enough. Would you have a lot of faith in that? No. Or if you ask them, did you turn off the gas, in the stove when you left? And they said, I imagined that I did. You'd probably say, well, that's, imagining is not, imagining is a great thing. Like the Imagineers at Disney World. But we wouldn't put a lot of faith if all someone had was, imagination. So what he needs is certainty. So what he ends up with is that even if he's dreaming or being deceived, he thinks that no matter what, he is still feeling and thinking. So he can be certain about that. And so he's a thinky thing, and that's what he thinks is true. Now the next thing he brings up is the wax example, which is kind of weird, but we'll look at what it does and what he tries to do with this. For example, actually to illustrate. So what's going on in this wax case? Well, Descartes hanging out in the room of his inn, and he's got a piece of wax. Now, when you get a piece of wax, at first it's like pretty solid and stuff. And it's a natural wax, so it smells a bit like the honey and the bees. If you take wax and you put it close to a fire, what happens? Yeah, it melts. And then the shape, changes, it becomes kind of shapeless, amorphous. And if you tap it, it's just kind of squishy. It doesn't make a sound. and so its properties change. And you may wonder, like, is Descartes having like a stroke here, or he's just kind of playing with wax and just kind of getting weird, or is he, does he have something else in the room besides wax that he's, ingesting, making start saying, wow, it's waxy wax. Now, actually, what's going on is this. To make a long story short, Descartes is noting this. We normally think that we know things through our senses, that seeing something proves that it exists. But Descartes' reasoning is this. When we take that piece of wax and we melt it, all its properties change. A good question is, how do we track that that's still the same wax? Does it look the same? Does it sound the same? No, look, it's changed. So we infer, we don't see that it's the same wax, it's an inference. So it's not our senses that are telling us that's the same, it's our inference. We're inferring that's the same wax. Now this, of course, we'll see this later when we talk about David Hume and some other dead guys, but it's sort of a problem we have with the persistence, well, it's object persistence. The idea being that, how do you know that it's continually the same thing? And your senses don't tell you that, it just tells you it looks similar. You have to infer that you're seeing the same thing. And so what he concludes is, it's not our senses that tell us about stuff, it's reason. Now, even more to the point, if you want to take the wax example and boil it all down to the fundamental waxiness, here's his point. In the case of the wax, our senses don't tell us the wax exists. Rather, what happens is this. The wax proves that he exists. How so? Well, if you think you're seeing wax, does that prove there really is wax? No. No, it could be an illusion, etc. But if you think you're seeing wax, does that prove that you exist? Yeah, because there may be no wax, and you're just, delusional or dreaming it. But if you are, even if you're dreaming of wax, you still exist. So what the senses prove, if there are such things, they don't prove this stuff exists, they just prove that, well, in my case, I exist, or in your case, you exist. So the point of the wax example, again, distilling it down to the finest boiled wax, is our senses don't prove that things exist around us, they just prove that, in my case, that I exist, or in your case, you exist. I see wax, therefore I am. Now he also throws in a couple interesting side points here. One is that he notes that, this is something that gets picked up on by later philosophers, that we get misled by the language. We say, for example, I see the wax, or I see it's the same wax. But again, we really don't see that. We infer that. Think of like, to use, not one that Descartes uses, but to illustrate it, think of like magic tricks. They work by us thinking that we're seeing the same thing, but we're not. So if we really could see things that they're the same or different just by sight, we couldn't be fooled. You just see it's the same or not the same. We have to make that inference. It looks the same, so it is the same. Another thing he brings up is he anticipates the movie Terminator. How so? Well, he brings forth this other skeptical point, namely this. When we look outside, he's sitting there in the winter, he says, when he sees men, he really doesn't see them. He infers that he sees them. Just like when he says he sees wax, he doesn't see it, he infers it's the same wax. For all he knows, and again this is anticipating the Terminator, for all he knows they could be machines wrapped in clothing, which is kind of creepy when you think about it. So there's Descartes. If he'd just been, I guess, writing a little differently, he could have been one of the first science fiction writers. And so he does raise a good point. What we do when we see stuff, we're not really seeing it, we're inferring it. And again, later on, if you go with the example of the Terminator, we jump ahead to those movies, and I recommend seeing the first one, but maybe the second, and stop. For God's sake, stop that. Now, the whole point of Terminator is what? They pass as Yes, humans, because they look like us. But of course, they're not. And if we could just see the difference, they'd never fool people. What we have to do is we have to make inferences about that. So we think that the people around us are really people. But that's an inference. We think, okay, they don't have Terminator technology, so everyone in this room is a person. There are no Terminators. Or if you saw the movie The Thing, which is about an alien that can imitate people exactly. So I don't know that none of you, that you're not the Thing, but I infer that you're not. I think it's a skeptical problem. And it's a, again, standard element in sci-fi. One of our fears is that what we think are people are not people. And movies like The Terminator and The Thing really cash in on that. Things that look like us that are not us. And epistemology, interestingly, is about that problem. The problem with The Terminator and the problem with The Thing is, how do you know that the people around you are really people? I better kill them all just to be sure. That's gaming 101. You know you're okay. You don't know if they're okay.
Question?
Yes.
For the wax example, when you said the way to see if the wax itself exists is for the wax to prove that it exists, how would that happen?
Good question. Descartes thinks that the wax, seeing the wax doesn't prove it exists. Seeing the wax proves he exists. So at this point, he hasn't gotten to the wax existing at all. At this point in his meditations, the wax could be entirely in his mind. But at this point, kind of the main point of this meditation too is he has one thing he can be sure about, and that, or he claims that he thinks he is. And all the stuff he experiences through the senses, they don't prove there is anything out there. He doesn't know if there is any wax, or to use the example from the Matrix, he doesn't know if there is a spoon. All he knows is that he exists. So if he thinks he is, if he thinks he's seeing wax, he doesn't know if the wax exists, but the wax proves he exists, the experience of it. So to hallucinate, one must exist. The hallucinations might not be real, but they prove that, in Descartes' case, that he's real. Or so it goes. Okay, so at this point, what has Descartes done? Well, according to him, he's achieved one certainty. I think I am. Everything else, still undone. So what he's going to do is try to dig out of that pit, build back up. Which leads to meditation 3. Now, he begins the following way to start rebuilding. Descartes is quite aware of the problem of the standard of truth, which is this. How do you know, or how do you tell if something is true or not? And you need a standard. You need something reliable to tell true from not true, a testing method. Or to use like an analogy, suppose you want to do archaeology and history. You need a standard that tells you how old things are, because otherwise you can't say like how old this painting is or how old the statue is. And so Descartes is trying to find the standard of truth. And that's really important because without a standard of truth, you don't have any way of telling whether something's true or not. So what is the standard? Well, it's this. He claims whatever is clear and distinct is true. So the standard is whatever he perceives very clearly and very distinctly is true. Now, should you accept that? Suppose something's super clear, super distinct. Well, one problem is how do you tell? It may seem like really clear and really distinct. When Descartes himself, he brings up the evil demon. Maybe the evil demon can make you think that it's really clear and really distinct. So one criticism of Descartes is he just kind of accepts the standard. And one problem is the standard itself is not really super clear or super distinct. How do you know what it is? And another problem is, why would this work? Why couldn't you still be fooled? Well, that's what he claims. Now what he's trying to get to is this. He wants to get to certainty. And so far he thinks he's got two certain things. Certain thing one, I think I am. Certain thing two, if I perceive something clearly and distinctly, it's true. And what he ultimately wants to get to is external objects, that there is a world out there. You know, going with the movie example, that he's not in the Matrix, or he's not in the dream within the dream within the dream with Leonardo DiCaprio and the bear. He's dreaming about the that'll be the twist. Inception and Revenant was the bear dreaming about Leonardo DiCaprio dreaming about the bear. That'll be the next movie in the series. Bear Dreams. True. Well, I heard it here first. It's on tape. It's on tape too. It's a confirmation. So he's trying to prove the existence of external stuff. Now, he believes, of course, that he's got ideas in his mind that he believed were caused by external object, by stuff out there. But the only thing clear and distinct about those ideas are that he has the ideas. So he is an error or not, he doesn't know at this point. The fact that he has the ideas, he thinks, doesn't tell him. So he could be deceived by everything if God is allowing his deception. So what he thinks, in order to get out of the pit, here's what he thinks he has to do. He has to answer the question, does God exist? If the answer is yes, question 2 arises, is God a deceiver or not? So, spoiler alert, what he's trying to do is this. He thinks if he can show that God exists, and God is not a deceiver, then problem is solved. So his mission objective is, he's going to try to prove that God exists, he's going to try to prove that God is not a deceiver, and he thinks that will get him to the external world, or so he claims. So we know his victory conditions. Now, to do this, of course, it's going to require a lot of work. First thing he considers is this. He divides his thoughts into different types, and he's sorting them out in order to tell which is true and which is in error. And he has ideas. Now, the concept of idea during this time was fairly basic. And one of the best ways to sort of think of it is, the way I always illustrate it, is they see it as like an image of a thing. And so my bad illustration, you know, like in cartoons, like, or like in this case, badly drawn cartoons, and they'll have the cube. Give me the Tesseract. Badly drawn. Oh, Marvel Comics, why do you not call it? I think this is self-explanatory. That is self-evident. So you have a person thinking of, say, you know, a cube, and one way to sort of crude the picture of that is ideas are kind of like pictures in your head. And the way they draw all cartoons is a simple but, you know, decent indication of that. So I get ideas that are images of things. And then, of course, we also have volitions, affections, you know, feelings, and judgments. Now, he does know this. If you have an idea of something, the idea itself is neither true nor false. What does it mean? Well, truth or falsity, when it comes to ideas, you know, the images of things, only enter in when you start making judgments about them, to be specific. If someone has an idea of a unicorn, is that idea itself true or false? Suppose someone just says, I have an idea of a unicorn. Is that idea of a unicorn true or false? Or does it not make any sense even as
It doesn't make
Yeah, the idea itself is neither. It's like picture a unicorn. It's a picture. Now, where truth or falsity comes in is when you make inferences about it. So if the person says there are unicorns out in the world for real, a little better horn, then we could say that's what error enters in. So if we talk about ideas referring to stuff beyond themselves, that if I have an idea of a unicorn, that there are unicorns, that would be something we believe to be untrue. So ideas themselves are neither true nor false. It's only when we talk about, is the idea matching something real or not? Now, so this gives him the following opportunity. What he's going to try to do is figure out where this, he's going to take an idea, any idea, and he's going to try to figure out where it comes from. And he's going to try to do this. If he gets an idea that can't come from himself, then there's got to be something else out there putting the idea in there. To use kind of a crappy analogy, imagine you think you might be the last person left in the world, and you have a room you stay in, you go out and like scavenge the wasteland, you come back, and there's something in your room that you didn't put there. Well, in that case, you'd think there's probably something or somebody else out there. So if you got something in your mind that didn't come from you, it had to come from somewhere else, or so his reason. So he's going to find an idea that he can't get from himself. Now, he thinks there are 3 types of ideas in this regard. 1, innate, built in. Secondly, adventitious. Got it right. I have horrible pronunciation. It comes from reading way more than I talk. If there's a guy, I only get 5,000 words, no, 3,000 words per day. I gotta care for, and I gotta plan it out carefully. But I have unlimited reading, so read more than I talk. The third type is, of course, others that are formed by himself. It's basically built in from the outside and stuff I make up myself. Now, originally he thought, of course, that the stuff in his mind about tables and chairs and goats and squirrels and roast beef came from where? Before I get all philosophical. Oh, pre-meditation Descartes said, Descartes, why do you have an idea of a squirrel? The answer is, yeah, I've seen squirrels. There's squirrels are out there, like the truth. Just like in the squirrel box, in the squirrel machines. Now, but then of course, he could just be making that stuff up, because of the problems of meditation more. So, he has to figure out why he believes that what's going on in his mind matches stuff out there. First option he considers is this. This lesson has been taught by nature. It's natural to think, I have an idea of a squirrel, so that's because nature taught me there are squirrels. Second reason, we get these ideas that don't seem to come from us. They don't seem to depend on our will. It is, for example, hey, you can try this. Suppose there's something in the room you don't like seeing. Can you just kind of like mentally remove it, like in Photoshop? Or add stuff? Nope. And so things don't appear to depend on our will. We can't Photoshop, stuff out of what we consider reality. Thirdly, maybe his ideas resemble what they're about. Now he considers each of those in turn. He's a very careful thinker. First one, instructed by nature is basically this, that we have a spontaneous inclination. We just are inclined to believe that what we're seeing is what's out there. I mean, this is something that can be tested. If you ask a 4-year-old, where's the squirrel? They don't point to their mind, they point to the squirrel. So it seems like natural. We just naturally, until we start getting corrupted by philosophy, we think there's stuff out there. But he thinks that natural impulses are not reliable. Why not? Well, he draws an analogy. Are our natural impulses really useful for distinguishing between virtue and vice? Are we naturally inclined towards good stuff or not so good stuff? Or we use another analogy. Suppose you want to decide what's healthy and what's not healthy. Should you go by how good it tastes? And definitely, in fact, it's often the opposite of things. Twinkies tasty, not so good. Broccoli, good for you, but good with cheese, because almost everything is better with cheese. Cheese, chocolate, and fry. The 2 C's and the F makes almost everything better. You can combine them for extra goodness. That's not Descartes, but it should be. That should be like a certainty. I fried it, therefore it's good. Well, I guess I'm not entirely certain. Yeah, so he thinks that he can't trust the natural impulses. And he brings up this notion here of the natural light. Not the beer, of course, although if a person drinks enough natural light, they might start seeing some stuff. And this natural light thing is something he borrowed or stole from thinkers like Plato, Aristotle, Aquinas. The idea is, and I always use the analogy like a little inner searchlight, the idea is we have this natural faculty, they claim, that reveals to us the truth. It's our ability just to see truth. And it's claimed that we got that. Again, that's super mysterious as to how that works, but that's what he claims. And it's something that's pretty common during this time. And as I mentioned, even now, we have the metaphor of the light bulb in the cartoons, and the idea of being enlightened, the light of truth. So he rejects the first thing, that nature is instructed in, because by the analogy, our natural impulses lead us astray, so why should we trust our natural inclination to think that stuff is out there? Next. This one seems like a plausible option, namely that if it was all in our mind, stuff shouldn't appear to us against our will. In other words, when we experience things, it just happens to us. You see stuff. And a lot of stuff we see we don't want to see. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Now, Descartes, though, has a counter to this. He says maybe he has a faculty that does this. That he's not aware of it, that it just, makes stuff appear to him that he doesn't control. Now, what Descartes could have done to make a better argument is this. When you're dreaming, so we know when we're dreaming, when we're not, do you have full control of your dreams, or does stuff just kind of happen? Yeah, and so we kind of know that things just happen in our dreams, things just appear and so forth, and we don't think they're not dreams because stuff doesn't happen under our control, and so we can infer Descartes' right. Maybe what we call reality is the same way. We're still just kind of dreaming, it's just a little better organized. So that seems to be out. Then he considers, thirdly, the resemblance. The idea being that, okay, I've got this idea, it resembles stuff out there, so there's stuff out there. But he brings up, to show this is dubious, he brings up the example of the sun. Now, our mental image of the sun is what? How big is the sun mentally? Our picture of the sun. If you look at the sun, which you shouldn't do directly, how big does the sun look? Oh, look outside, it looks about, about that big in terms of what it looks like. But we know what? How big is it for real? Supposedly. Way bigger than you can stuff the earth in the air lots of times. It's easy for your earth storage, I guess. Yeah, so it looks like a little, kind of yellow, thing up there. But of course, our astronomical reasoning tells us it's huge and quite a ways away. And so he notes that we seem to have this discrepancy between our visual pictures of things and our, say, scientific understanding of things. And so what he thinks, his conclusion from this is that reason tells us that these two ideas can resemble the same thing. We have the visual thing, then we have our scientific understanding. And so he infers, this shows that this resemblance argument doesn't work. I love that thought. Are you going to the Star Trek thing tonight?
Yeah, or the Star Trek thing?
Oh, there's the, I got tickets to it, but I'm really sick, so I don't want to go and disease people. But there's a Star Trek, they play the Star Trek music while watching Star Trek, which is super nerdy. So if you're a super nerd, you'd be there. But Star Trek is good, and also very philosophical.
Yeah, I just finished binge watching Warrior, so.
Well done. Of course, no one has the Beastie Boys in the soundtrack, and like, I'm not sure how I feel about that, because, everyone likes the Beastie Boys, but it's kind of a weird combination. You don't think of like Star Trek and Beastie Boys. Anyways, we'll see how it works out. Could be off. Now, so basically he considers these three things. Namely, maybe his natural inclinations lead him there. But he says those can't be trusted. Out. Maybe external objects are real because they don't depend on your will. If I walk into the desk and like, darn desk, or you fall off something. So it's like, I can't be doing this because reality hurts. So he rejects that as well. And then he considers the resemblance argument, says, that's it. So those three arguments fail. But again, what he wants to do is try to show that what's going on in his mind matches something out there. So since those three fail, he's got to come up with an alternative. A plan, I guess, A, B, C, plan D. Fortunately, the alphabet has a lot of letters. So what he launches into is the following distinctions. Now, what he has to do, again, is try to find something in here that didn't come from him. And if there's something in his mind that isn't from him, there's something besides him. There's something out there. Now, to do this, he's going to divide up the nature of ideas. And here's how it works. And this involves some terminology and some complexity. Here's how to lay it out. Now, ideas by themselves, he notes, don't tell us whether there's something out there or not. You can't like look at your idea and infer whether it matches anything out in the world. Which seems, it's kind of a skeptical argument. Make use of the following analogy. Imagine you're in a room with no windows and doors, and all there is a row of monitors around you, and you see stuff that's on the monitors. Well, does seeing on the monitor, does that tell you whether it's actually out there or not? No, the only way you can tell is if you can somehow get outside of the room and see for yourself what's happening on the monitors. And of course, can you get outside of your own mind? No, because no matter where you go, there you are. But Descartes is going to try to find a way that will, he hopes, will be a clue within the idea to tell him there's something out there. So he thinks that even though the idea itself doesn't tell you there's stuff out there, just by kind of looking at it, he thinks if he examines the right ideas, they can give him a clue to there being something out there. So he's doing kind of a CIS in his mind, trying to examine the clues and show there's something out there for real. In CIS, Descartes' mind was considered but quickly rejected, along with CIS Tallahassee and CIS Upshot. Now, he brings up this notion of reality. Now, normally we think reality works what? Things are either real or not. But there is a conception going way back to the early days of degrees of reality. Now again, we generally think of things as like reality being like, something's real or not exist or it doesn't. But the ancients and medievals had the idea of degrees of reality. Now it didn't mean that like existed like, it wasn't like it was insubstantial and ghost-like or something. But the idea was, you can think of it this way. Being more real or less real is like having more power. Or I'll use an example from games. In many games, you start off with like a weak character, you're level 1. And then of course there's like a level 1 cap. And so you can think of that as almost like levels. Like the character, all the characters are real, so to speak, but they have like levels of power. Or another analogy would be like, think of your phone. Your phone is charged or it's not, but it has levels of charge. Or things are intelligent or not, but there's levels of intelligence. So their view was that, for the medievals and ancients, that there was being realer meant you were more like powerful, more capabilities, for example. And so God, for the medievals, would be the realest of all. And the least creatures would be the least real. So on this view, reality is not like a switch off or on, it's degrees. Super, the real is real, and just barely real. And of course, unreal. Now, ideas, according to Descartes, have a reality. And there are actually two types of reality for ideas. First one is this. One is what she calls objective reality, which is kind of a bad choice for terms. But here's the idea. Objective reality could probably be better put as representative reality. So the objective reality of an idea is its aboutness, being about something. In philosophy, the technical term for this is intentionality, which also is an unfortunate choice because we think of something being intentional means what? Yeah, on purpose. In this case, what intentionality means is being about something. To use an illustration, if you have a picture of Donald Trump, the picture is about Donald Trump. It's about this. Now, ideas are the same thing. If you picture in your mind, if you will, Donald Trump. So the intentionality is the ability of your idea to be about things. So an idea of a unicorn is about a unicorn. An idea of a squirrel is about a squirrel. So one feature of ideas is intentionality. They're about things. It's their aboutness. Or as I say in Maine, aboutness. Now, what's he going to do with this? So we got ideas, they're about stuff. So where does he go from there? Well, he whips out a principle, which is this. And of course, a fair criticism of his principles is, Descartes got all crazy skeptical, so how do we know that we can trust his principle? He was even doubting like math, 2 plus 2 being 4, and squares having 4 sides, and so forth. What he claims is this. His principle is the cause must contain at least as much reality as the effect, which is based on the principle you can't get something from nothing. Or there's no such thing as a free lunch. Now, to use an analogy, what he's trying to do basically is this. Imagine you have a battery, and it's got a certain amount of charge in it. Now, can a battery charge itself? No. So if you've got like 1 bar of battery charge in there, there must have been something out there in the world that had at least that much power. So we know that if the battery has like this much power in it, there's something out there in the world that had that much power. That's what we claim. So this kind of works the same way. You can't get something from nothing. And so if you get an effect, like in this case, the battery being charged that much, you know that whatever caused that had at least that much power. Likewise, he thinks with an idea, if you get an idea, whatever caused that idea had to have as much like idea reality or idea of power as the idea has. Based on the principle you can't get something from nothing. So if we accept you can't get something from nothing, if you get something, it must have come from something with at least that much something. Or so it goes. Now is that plausible? Can we get something from nothing? We're told...
In terms of physical things or like thinking things?
Oh, I guess anything. I guess.
I mean, presumably in terms of ideas and thoughts, yeah, because there's stuff that's invented along the way that no one ever thought of before. So.
Yeah, we could say that maybe he's wrong because he says this, but just because he says it doesn't mean it's true. we normally think, thanks to our knowledge of, physics, matter can be created or destroyed, we think you can't get something from nothing. But maybe it's not true. Maybe if we can get something from nothing, then Descartes' whole project falls apart. So he has to believe and assume that we can get something
Well,
from
how do
nothing.
you get something from nothing?
Good question. Now, it would seem to not make sense. But then, of course, they give us two options. One is there's always been something, or we had to get something from nothing. So, yeah, a good question is how can you get something from nothing? People on Wall Street probably do that. But in general, I think, yeah, it doesn't make sense to us. So we have to accept then that there always has to have been something. So how does this get him pointed towards it being stuff out there? Well, we have the objective reality, again, which is kind of a poor choice. It's like the aboutness. But so far, an idea of a unicorn doesn't tell us if they're unicorns or not. It's about a unicorn, but we don't know if there really are unicorns out there. So then what he brings up is the next type of reality. What he calls formal reality. Now, one of the neat things about objective reality, which again is a bad choice of terms, is that we can have ideas of things without ideas having those qualities. For example, if you have an idea of something that weighs 15 metric tons and emits gamma radiation, does that make your head explode because something really big appears in your head? In other words, is your idea of something weighing 15 metric tons, does your idea weigh 15 metric tons? Fortunately not. Otherwise we kill ourselves pretty quick with our ideas. Think of small things, think of small things. Yeah, so our ideas can have all these properties in them, but not have the properties for real. So like the idea of a square thing is not square. The idea of a pointy thing is not pointy. The idea of a radioactive thing is not radioactive. It doesn't have the qualities for real. So what does it have the qualities for real? What would it be to actually be radioactive or square or weighing 15 metric tons? Well, that would be what Descartes calls formal reality. This is having the property for real. This is having the property, as a representation. Again, we go with the analogy of a painting or a picture. A photo of Donald Trump is not Trump, it's about Trump. Donald Trump has formal Trump reality because he has all the Trump qualities. So formal reality is having that quality for real. This is, really being, so here's the idea of square, it's about the square, and then there's really being squared, or whatever. Now, as Descartes believes, what causes objective reality of an idea is formal reality. So since we can't get something for nothing, if you have an idea about something, there must be something that has that quality for real that caused that idea. So whatever ingredients you've got in an idea, there must be something or some things out there for real that have those qualities for real that cause those. Because you can't get something from nothing. So his two key principles are, well, three. One is you can't get something from nothing. So if there is something, it had to come from something. Secondly, ideas have aboutness. They're about things. But that's having the property representation. It's about the thing. Like a picture of a pizza is not a pizza, it's about a pizza. But he claims to have the aboutness in an idea, there's got to be something that is formal reality that caused that idea. So whatever's in the idea, there must be something real that caused that idea. Now, Descartes does bring in something that causes, well, basically dooms him. Well, many things do in this case. Now, there's a third type of thing that Descartes accepts called eminent containment. Now, this idea came up, not surprisingly, with working out, well, here was the problem. In religion, is God supposed to be material? I mean, he's drawn as like an old bearded white guy in Michelangelo, but is God really an old bearded white guy? No, we think of God as being non-material. So the problem is, how does a non-material being interact with the physical world? Because they're not physical. Well, Descartes kind of hit on this idea, or the thinkers hit on this idea of eminent containment. Probably the best way to think of it is virtualization or emulation. What I mean is this. If you've got, well, let me give two examples. One is if you've got a computer, you can get an emulator for your computer that can do things like play any, Nintendo games, or play like old DOS games. And it's, it's called an emulator. It lets your computer, which is not like a Super Nintendo, act like a Super Nintendo virtually. You can do that stuff. Or if you have like an Xbox One, it can now emulate an Xbox 360. Before you couldn't play 360 games on it, but I think now you can. So it's not a 360, but it can do the things that 360 did. And so eminent containment is like emulation. You're not really that thing, but you can do what it does, do all the things that it does. And this is necessary for God. So God could do stuff, that he didn't, qualities he didn't have. Now the problem that comes about is, if things can do things they're not, then formal morality need not be the cause of stuff. You could have something that doesn't have the qualities for real, but has them eminently. So everything could be like a deception caused by something that eminently is real, but is not actually real. And that kind of dooms Descartes. I wrote a paper on this that's pretty boring, to be honest. But I like the word eminent. It sounds, cool. And containment. Sounds like a cool prison where they keep like supervillains and stuff. Then they break out of it all the time because that's what supervillains do. Now, ignoring that, Descartes has to work out the causes of ideas, where they come from. And again, what he claims is this. If he's got an idea in his mind, there must be a cause that as much reality as that idea, must be as real. And again, going with the analogy of the battery, if a battery has a charge, there must be something that has at least as much charge as that battery's got. He claims that the cause of the idea itself must have those qualities for real. So if an idea of something, there must be something real that caused that idea. Now it gets a bit Platonic at this point. Not Platonic in the sense of, non-romantic, but in the following sense. Plato, a good friend Plato, had this notion of the forms. And putting it super quickly and super simply, Plato believed that for every sort of thing, like beauty or justice, there would be in this Platonic heaven, which is outside of space and time, perfect beauty or perfect justice. And so a form would be timeless, changeless, eternal, and perfectly what it is. Perfectly just, or perfectly beautiful. Now Descartes gives kind of a similar argument for that. He says, in a rigorous argument, that if one idea causes another, this cannot go on to infinity. And a classic rigorous argument is, well, an infinite rigorous basically is this. One thing requires another thing. If A requires B, and B requires C, and C requires D, and so on, you go on to infinity. To illustrate, suppose you go to financial aid, and you say to the person there, I'm here for some financial aid. The person smiles and says, of course, we're from the government, we're here to help. You say, wow, so cool so far. How can I get this financial aid? The person says, all you have to do is fill out the form for requesting financial aid. They say, sweet, can I have that form? The person says, but of course. But I mentioned that we are from the government, so we're here to help. All you have to do to get the form for requesting financial aid is fill out Form 1, the form for requesting the form for financial aid. You say, okay, that's kind of weird, but can I have that form? And they say, but of course, we're here to serve. But to get Form 1, you need to fill out Form 1A, the form for requesting the form for requesting the form for financial aid. And of course, for every form, there's another form you have to fill out, which means you'll get your money Never. And so it's a regress. If one thing requires another thing, it goes off to infinity and beyond, so you get nothing. So if every idea can be caused by another idea, Descartes argues, there would be no cause. There would be no ideas. So we need to eventually get to a cause of an idea that is not itself not an idea. We have to end up with what he calls an archetype, the origin of that idea. And even Plato had the origin of all ideas being in forms. So Descartes gets a little Platonic there. Now, if we accept, of course, that there must be some ultimate cause to the ideas, this still doesn't save Descartes. Why not? Well, if this is Descartes' mind, and this is his mind on drugs, like the egg metaphor, sorry, cannot resist. Remember, Nancy Reagan says, just say no. That works so well. Now, so that's Descartes' mind. So we know that he's like an idea. He has to count from an idea, from an idea, from an idea. But this can't go into infinity. So there's going to be like a first cause for that idea that made that possible. But of course, that whole chain of ideas can all be within his mind. So even though he could say, yeah, there's got to be a first cause to it, it can't come from nothing, it could all still be in his mind. But what he needs is something out here that, kind of like a virus, injected that idea. So how is he going to get that? Well, he's got to find an idea that can't come from him. So if he finds something in here that could not originate in himself, that means there's something outside. So then he can, this is, his mind, it came from outside his mind, there's something else. I mean, you can go back to the problem. Imagine post-apocalyptic, you think you're the last person in the world. And to know there's someone else, you got to find something that did not come from you. Then you can also decide whether you're going insane or not, and just hearing voices. And Descartes kind of created that problem for himself. How does he know if he's the only thing or not? Now, he does consider, going back to talking about primary and secondary, as you might recall from the ancient days a while back, secondary qualities are what? Well, they're in your mind. What would be an example of secondary quality? Like, what would be a secondary quality of this marker? Yeah, color. And color can just be in the mind. So things like color, taste, or not too tasty, smell, etc. He could cause all of those. Why? Well, as he notes, the secondary qualities are, not particularly clear, not particularly distinct, and he could simply have all those secondary qualities already in his mind. It could all come from him. There's nothing in them that requires a necessity that they originate outside of himself. In fact, the very nature of secondary quality is that it's in your mind. Now, what are the primary qualities? Like density, mass, volume, etc. Well, Descartes says they could be all of his mind too. How so? Well, maybe he actually has those qualities for real. So he's just, getting them from himself. Or, this is where then he brings the thing, maybe he has them, even though he's not really, say, extended and three-dimensional and have mass himself, maybe he's just an incorporeal mind, he might have those qualities anyway. So his view is there's nothing about those primary qualities or secondary qualities that necessitate they come from outside of himself. They could all be in his mind. And of course, what he could do is also point to the dream argument. When you're dreaming, well, is there physics in your dream? Gravity and so forth. Yeah, so all that stuff, and I think, well, that could all be just in my mind, and so all this could be in my mind too. There's nothing about primary and secondary qualities that necessitate they come from outside. It could all be, I might not be aware of them, consciously, but it could all be in me, all coming from me. So he's going to find something that can come from within, and he considers the best choice to be God. God will save the day. How so? Well, he's got the idea of God, and he's going to find out whether all the stuff, the idea of God could come from within himself, either, singularly or kind of assembled, piece by piece, like built like a centaur, chimera, or griffin or hippogriff or something. Or did it have to come from the outside? So what is God for him? Well, he takes God to be a substance. Not like an illicit substance like heroin or like a painkiller like oxy, codeine. But so what's a substance? Well, substance is basically stuff. And philosophers believe in substance for the following reason. And here's a quick argument. Now, let's take this folder. Now, we find folders, around. But could I pull away the red and just have like red? Now, I mean, I can remove the color with like bleach or something, but I can't like pull it. We don't find red just drifting. We find red things, but we don't find red. Similarly, could I pull away the rectangularity and just have rectangularity drifting around where you step on it like a Lego brick in the night? No. And so what philosophers think is if you were to somehow able to peel away all the properties, redness, rectangularness, plasticness, etc., what would be underneath all that would be substance, would be whatever the hell that is, to use the technical term. And the reason why philosophers think there's a substance is because you don't find stuff drifting on its own. You don't find like red, rectangular, plasticky on its own. You always find them together. And so the idea is they have to be grouped into, entities. So to use another analogy, it's like Mr. Potato Head. The potato is like the substance, and the eyes and stuff stuck into it are like the properties. And so Descartes believed that he is a substance. He's a thinking substance, a ghost, so to speak. And he also claims that the way he conceives of God, his idea is that God is a substance. And also God is eternal, infinite, immutable, independent, all-knowing, all-powerful, the creator of everything. So that's what he assumes God is. So what he has to do is answer the question, okay, I got an idea of God. Infinite, perfect, all-knowing, all-good, all-powerful, etc. Could this all be coming from me? If the answer is yes, doomed. If the answer is no, it must come from something else, God, then there's got to be something besides me, which is good. So, could he get the idea of God from himself? Well, this is what he claims. Since he is a substance, he claims, and God is a substance, that part can come from him. But there's a big difference. He's finite, as far as he knows, and God is supposed to be infinite. So he thinks, going back to the reality thing, he thinks the infinite's more real than the finite. He also thinks that the idea of God can't be false, which people, of course, will dispute, like atheists. But he thinks that the idea's got to be, true. So his view is that this idea of substance can come from him, but the infinity cannot. So how does the infinity work in this regard? Well, he does consider that, okay, God's infinite, he's not. But maybe he considers that he still is getting the idea from himself. So at this point, basically saying, okay, even though God is like all super awesome and infinite stuff, maybe the idea is still coming from me. So maybe he's the cause of God, or his idea of God. How so? Well, what he considers is maybe he's just, God of course is perfect, all-knowing, etc., but maybe he's just taking his idea of himself and just kind of, building it up. So just like to use a lesser sort of comparison, a person could imagine someone, well, think of like how we think of superheroes. Do superheroes therefore exist? Well, no, because a superhero is just what? Someone like us who's got more. Yeah, so we think of like the Flash. It's like he runs, but he runs really fast. So it's easy to imagine that. It's just like me, except way faster. Or like Superman. He's like us, except he can fly, and he's super strong, and super breath, and laser eyes, and stuff. Yeah, so most heroes are just like souped up versions of us. And so the way Descartes kind of saying that, when he's thinking of God, maybe he's just thinking of himself, but really, boosting up those powers. But then, of course, he has to be, if that were the case, then he'd be doomed, because the idea could come from him, no God, he's trapped in the abyss of skepticism, game over. So, why can't he be the cause? Well, this is what he knows. He draws a distinction between, and he goes back and rips off some past philosophers. Another concept, in addition to the reality stuff, is the difference between what is actual and what's potential. And of course, it's not; those aren't just philosophical terms we use in normal life as well. If you got potential, what does that mean?
They have the ability to do something.
Yeah, you haven't done it yet, but you could. If you get something actual, then yeah. So if you're an actual gold medalist, you get a gold medal. If you're a potential gold medalist, you could get one. Now Descartes believes, and this is kind of standard, is that God has no potential. Now that may seem like a mean thing to say, because normally if someone says to a person, "You have no potential," is that praise or insult?
Insult.
An insult. So when we say that God has no potential, it might seem like an insult. But actually, for God, it would be totally true. Why? Well, if you have potential, that means, sort of ironically, you're lacking. You haven't got something. If you got it for actual, if you're fully actualized, you have no potential at all left. You're full actual. So God has no potential because he's 100% actual. He's actualizing all the actualities across all actual spaces. Which will become a buzzword soon. Corporations start talking about actualizing their actualities across all actual spaces. But again, you heard it here first. So, what he considers is maybe he has all that stuff potentially, but not actually. So he's just imagining, again, like taking the Flash. I can run, then I just imagine myself running super, super fast. Or, I got some strength, I can lift some stuff, then I can imagine I can lift, anything. So, super strength. But he notes his idea of God is that God has all that stuff actually, not potentially. Since he just has it potentially maybe, because he sees himself as, being finite and limited, and he can try to imagine himself, greater and greater. But his idea of God is that God is actually infinite, actually all-powerful, actually all-knowing. So he considers that can come from himself. Because his idea of potentially being awesome is not the same as actually being awesome. Now, critics, of course, would say, in fact, they do say, yeah, you could just take this idea and just blow it up, and that blown up is just God. And Descartes needs to show that, no, he's not taking it and blowing it up and getting God, it's already blown up. And he has to have that idea from the real God. So how does it make this happen? Well, he wants to determine if he can exist if God does not. So that's his objective. Maybe if he can show that he can exist without God, doesn't need God. But if he can't exist without God, God has to exist, which is a pretty good inference. If I can't exist without God, and I exist, God must exist. Deductive argument. He first considers this. Could he create himself? And the answer is no. Why does he think this? Well, this is how he reasons. If you could create yourself, how awesomely would you have created yourself? Pretty awesome. But it's kind of, in a way, it's kind of self-deprecating. I'm not that awesome, so I didn't create myself. Now, of course, the potential counter to it is that maybe I did create myself, but I have limits. I can only, create so much. So this assumes that if you can create something, you can create it super awesome. Second argument, the infinite parts argument. And it's kind of interesting, problem. Namely, it's something we don't think about. So think of if something exists, we think it just keeps on existing. But a good question is, if you think of time as infinite number of moments, a good question is, what keeps us existing across time? Why don't we just flip out? Which is a pretty good question. Basically the conservation of being, of existence. And philosophers, of course, and physicists have thought about this. Why do we keep on going? Why do we exist rather than not exist? Unfortunately, we do exist, but a good question is what keeps us going? Now, Descartes makes this argument that conserving himself, preserving his existence, is the same thing as creation. That literally he's being created every second. So to keep something in existence is akin to creating it. And he notes that there's only a distinction in reason between creating something and preserving it, or so he claims. Now, he believes, in fact, he thinks he's certain, that he doesn't have the power to create himself. Because if he did, he'd create himself super awesome, but he didn't, so he doesn't have the power. So if he keeps on going, there must be something that is a power that preserves, that keeps him existing, creating a new moment to moment. And that, of course, is God. Now, he also considers that maybe he was created by things less than God. But then he runs into that recurse argument because, maybe he arose from his parents or something else, but ultimately he thinks this must eventually, through the recurse argument, go back to God. So that won't work. He also considers maybe there were several causes to him, but he thinks that won't work either because the idea of God is of one being, God, many. He considers his parents, but rejects those. So he ultimately comes to the conclusion, to close, that God must exist, and he thinks that since God exists, he's also going to try to show, and he believes, of course, that God is not a deceiver. So at this point, Descartes is super surely that there is God. And so next time in that super certainty, we'll pick up and see where he goes on to Meditations 4, 5, and 6. So next time, the 4, 5, and 6 in it, and then the end. So have a good rest of the day, and I guess think thoughts about things.